Hello and welcome to the What's New in JIRA 3.13 webinar. My name is Jeff Leeser. I'm the JIRA Product Marketing Manager, and I'll be joined on this webinar by Giancarlo Leonetti, who heads our pre-sales team here in San Francisco. He'll be doing some demos and show you 3.13 in action. With JIRA 3.13, we at Atlassian decided to kind of go back to the basics. We took a very careful look at our public issue tracker, jira.atlassian.com, and looked at some of the more popular requests, some of the more popular issues with lots of votes. And we closed some of those requests by putting those requested features into JIRA 3.13. I believe in the final analysis we closed 3 of the top 5 requests. We of course added quite a bit more than that. We closed quite a few issues with this release. And you can see some of the key features here on this slide. We'll go through each of these in turn and talk a little bit about the new features in JIRA 3.13. Let's dive right in and talk about shareable dashboards. Dashboards, of course, is something that JIRA has had for quite some time. That's not new for us. But up until JIRA 3.13, dashboards couldn't be shared. You created a dashboard for your personal use. You had it, and that was it. You couldn't really give it to anyone else. And it was a very popular request, I believe over 430 votes, to be able to take a dashboard that an expert, a JIRA expert, creates and share that, make that available to someone who uses JIRA, but is perhaps not a JIRA expert. For example, maybe your tech support manager would create a dashboard showing support issues within JIRA, and then upper management, executives, folks who don't use JIRA every day, could then use that dashboard, put that onto their JIRA homepage, and use that to keep an eye on the issues within tech support. Same idea, perhaps, if you use JIRA for recruiting, as we do here at Atlassian. Your HR folks are probably not JIRA experts, so they're keeping their data in JIRA, but you, the expert, can create a dashboard for them and make it available for those folks. As you can see right here, creating the dashboard, or rather sharing the dashboard, is really quite simple. You create it using the same mechanisms you've always used, and then you simply, with a couple clicks here, as we'll have Giancarlo show us in just a moment, go ahead and share it with everyone in your instance, or certain groups or certain projects, etc., and you really make those decisions of how to share the dashboard. Once you've shared a dashboard, the dashboard is then used by someone else by first doing a search for it. So here you can see I'm searching for a dashboard named JIRA, and then favoriting the dashboard by simply highlighting the little star here next to the dashboard name. That then puts that dashboard on your JIRA homepage. And as you add dashboards to your homepage, what you get is a set of tabs along the top of your homepage that lets you switch between the different dashboards that you're using, that you're looking at. We've taken the same exact idea, the searching and favoriting, and also brought it over to filters. So now you can also have filters that can be shared and then favorited by users. And again, same idea. This allows a real expert in JIRA to create an advanced filter and then share it with other users. In this case, when you favorite a filter, as we'll see in a moment, it shows up in a new favorite filters list that's available on every JIRA page, so you can very quickly jump to any of the filters that you want to see. And with that, let me pass things over to Giancarlo, and he's going to go ahead and give you a demonstration of JIRA 3.13 and actually show you dashboards and filters, favoriting and sharing them and using them that way.
Thanks, Jeff. Before we touch on shareable dashboards, we will look at shareable filters and how they have improved in 3.13. Filters drive the highly customizable dashboard views of JIRA. Previously, in JIRA 3.12, you were able to share filters with groups. In JIRA 3.13, you can still share filters, but with more granularity. Let's take a quick look at shareable filters. On the top, you see your filters list here of all your favorite filters. We'll go and create a filter at this time by clicking on Find Issues. And I'm going to save my filters. And here we can see who we can share our filters with. I'll call this filter Webinar. You can add a description. By clicking on the star here, you can actually add or remove this filter from your favorites list. By default, it's shared with all users. So let's go ahead and remove this. You can share your filters with everyone, maybe a particular group that you're interested in, or you can share it with a particular project. When you share it with a project, those users who have the browse space permission can now view this filter. You can take this a step further and also share it with a role in that project. So we'll go ahead and add these users, and we'll also add a group. And the group we're going to add is the JIRA webinar users. So now that we've gone ahead and saved our filter, now you can go ahead and click on the Filters tab, and you can see that we have the webinar filter saved. Next, if you click on Manage, we can see all our favorite filters that are currently saved. If you're not interested in the filter anymore, you can simply click on the star and remove it from the list. You can also view the popular filters. The popular filters become popular by the amount of users that have added them to their favorites. So if you're interested in any of the popular filters, just simply click on the star. We've now added a popular filter. And you can also search for filters. Maybe during one of your meetings with your managers, he actually told you that you should save a particular filter. And you know how to do something with critical bugs. So let's go ahead and do a search for critical bugs. As you can see, this is quite a long list. So we know it was developed by our manager, so let's go ahead and search under our manager's name. And here's the filter that we were looking for. Just click on the star, and now it's added to our favorites list. Now let's talk about dashboards. Dashboards are a user's one-stop shop or homepage. This is where the user will be able to see all things that interest them, whether it is information about a project, issues or tasks relating to them, or just to keep track of what's going on across all projects. We have now taken this a step further with shareable dashboards. Once dashboards have been shared, users can search for them and favorite them to add them to their homepage. Now, a less experienced JIRA user no longer needs a system admin to help them set up a dashboard. They can simply click on a dashboard that has been shared with them and have the information available. Maybe you're a manager and you want to create a dashboard to share out with your group. You can simply create this dashboard, and your group could find this particular dashboard and save it to their homepage. Let's go ahead and see how easy that can be done. You can go ahead and click on Manage Dashboard, and your favorites will show you the current dashboards on your homepage. Currently, we just have one. If you go to Popular, you can see all the popular dashboards, and once again, this is associated with the number of users that have this as one of their favorites on their dashboard. And we'll add Help Desk to our dashboard by simply clicking on the star. Now if we go back to our homepage, you'll see that we now have a second dashboard called Help Desk. Now we'll go back to clicking on Manage Dashboards, and you can also search for dashboards in the system also. So maybe you're interested in any dashboards that have been shared out with you that have to do with project management. You can simply type in project management in the search filter, click on Search, and view all the project management dashboards. And we see that there's one available. By simply clicking on the star, it has now been added to our homepage. And now we have 3 dashboards with 3 clicks. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Jeff to continue on with the JIRA 3.3 webinar.
All right, thank you, Giancarlo, very much, and let's move on. Another very popular request, although this one is probably a bit more popular just with JIRA administrators, is the ability to restore a single project into a JIRA instance. Prior to 3.13, when you did a restore, it was an all or nothing kind of a deal. You took a backup from a JIRA instance, and when you did a restore, you had to restore that entire JIRA instance. You couldn't just sort of pick and choose the various projects you would want. We've changed that. With 3.13 now, you can take a project and restore that into an active instance without disturbing the rest of the instance. This lets you, for example, move a project from one server to another, something you may need to do, or collapse 2 servers into one. a fairly common request for this feature if you have two different JIRA servers and now you want to integrate them and use just one particular server. You can take the two sets of projects and interweave them together to create a single JIRA instance. There are some limitations I want to make sure you're aware of. Of course, full details are available in the documentation, but let me just highlight for you that there are some things that do not get restored when you do this single project import. Of course, the things you do get is all the basic information, the basic issue information, versions, components, history, links. You can see the list there. Attachments are optional. Attachments can be quite large, of course. So it's possible for you to decide to not bring attachments in and not take up the space to wherever you're importing the project. So some of the things that don't get imported, actually the whole list of things here that doesn't get imported, workflows, groups, custom field configs, again, you can see the list here. You need to recreate those items by hand, and then once they're created, you then connect the project you're importing to those items. So you would create the workflow that you need, import the project, and then point the project at the appropriate workflow. Moving on to a small, but I think a pretty important change, small in the sense of what the user sees. Of course, JIRA has had for a long time now the ability to do subtasks. To take a task and break it down into pieces. When you do that, you get what we call the quick creation form. So this little form pops up on your screen, and you can very quickly create the subtasks or break the task down into subtasks. It was a little inefficient, a little inconvenient prior to this. You didn't have a lot of options. You just created the subtask, and if you wanted to make some changes to it, you then had to navigate over to that newly created subtask and make those changes. We've collapsed some of that work. So you have some of these options, like adding the original estimate, for example, that you can do right on the quick creation screen. So you click make a subtask, fill in this data, and then add the subtask. Really, the whole idea is it just makes things a little more efficient, a little less error-prone, so there's no forgetting to go and add that information later, and just should be a convenience for those users who are doing a lot of creation of subtasks. Progress bars, in addition, are probably primarily aimed at the JIRA administrator. Prior to 3.13, for certain long-running operations, for example, workflow migration, you didn't get any visual feedback. As an administrator, you kicked off the migration, for example, or the new project import, another operation that could take a while, and then your client would just seem to go to sleep. You couldn't tell what was going on. So we've added this progress bar that shows you, as you can see here, not only do we have sort of the standard mechanism of the bar that's going to slowly march its way to the right, but giving some details here about what step we're on, in this particular case, what entity we're processing. So you can see that things are progressing and moving along, and then that gives you some idea of how things are going. And if for some reason everything stops, then you know that there actually is some kind of problem on the server that you might need to deal with. You also have an idea of how much longer the particular process will take, of course, because you're getting that constant feedback. Another very popular request, somewhere around 170 votes, I believe, for this one. Again, primarily for JIRA administrators, in fact, in this case, pretty much only for JIRA administrators, is the ability to edit an active workflow. Prior to 3.13, if you wanted to change a workflow, really what you had to do was make a copy of it, make the changes, and then migrate the projects, and then if you don't like that, you got to make another copy, and on and on and on. And it could really be very time-consuming, as well as, again, sort of allows for a lot of human error. We've taken that whole process and really simplified it down quite a great deal. You can now edit a workflow that's in use. So a workflow that is in use by a project, you can go ahead and pull that up in the workflow editor, make your changes, change a step name, for example, or add some kind of new transition, whatever it might be. And then when you save that workflow out, the project is then given the new updated workflow. It doesn't really sort of change what you can do. You've always been able to do that, but it really reduces the number of steps, and therefore, again, sort of increasing your efficiency and greatly reducing the chance for any human error to creep into the process. Let me now talk a little bit about, we're still going to be talking about JIRA 3.13, of course, but let me talk about how 3.13 interacts with some of Atlassian's other products. You can see our products here, our 7 available products right here. We're going to talk today about a couple of products that work directly for developers, in particular Fisheye, Bamboo, and Crucible, and how JIRA 3.13 can work with these. Very quickly, Fisheye is a source code repository tool. Lets you look inside a source code repository and extract a lot of interesting data. And Bamboo is our continuous integration server. That is, it's a server that sits out on your network and monitors your software configuration repository, and when a developer does a check-in, for example, can kick off a build and capture lots of information about that build. We'll also talk a little bit, or John Carlo will demo a little bit for you, Crucible, which is the tool that we use to put some workflow around team peer code review, rather. As you do reviews of each other's code, we can put some workflow around that with Crucible. Let's talk first about Bamboo and the Bamboo plugin in JIRA 3.13. Now, Bamboo, like these other products I've mentioned, are commercial products. You purchase them separately from Atlassian and set them up on your premise. But then there is a JIRA plugin for Bamboo. That plugin is free and is available from our plugin repository. Once you've then put the plugin in and properly configured it, Bamboo information is then related back and seen inside the JIRA interface. So, for example, here I am in JIRA, looking at this BAM 2711 issue, and I can see that I have a build tab now where information is coming out of Bamboo. I can see right here that I've had a number of builds of Bamboo that are related to this issue, and I can see that those builds were successful. The little green checkbox there telling me they were successful. I can see these builds are related to other issues. I can see how long they happened, in this case 3 days ago, etc., etc. I see lots of good information about the builds. These builds are related back to this particular issue. So if I'm the guy who fixed this issue, now I can see that this issue has been incorporated into a build, can make sure that build is properly tested and that the issue has actually been resolved. If there was a problem with the build for some reason, this little this green check rather would turn red, and I could actually click on the build name right here, and I would then jump over into Bamboo, where I could then take a look at some of the further details about the build and figure out what broke. Perhaps in fixing my defect, I made some kind of error and actually broke the build. So again, there is another server now that we're introducing here, Bamboo, that's doing the continuous integration, and the Bamboo plugin in JIRA pulls that data inside of JIRA for you to view. In very much the same vein, we also have a Fisheye plugin. In this case, the plugin is installed with 3.13. It's installed automatically. If you are using Fisheye, you can then go configure the plugin, point it at your Fisheye server. And just like with the Bamboo plugin, we start to get a lot of interesting information coming inside of JIRA. In this case, of course, I'm looking at the project level, so I'm looking at the project FE, or Fisheye. And I can see, for example, this various project's issues and how those relate to the source code that's inside of my repository. Fisheye is not itself a source code repository. It sits on top of Subversion, CVS, or Perforce, and pulls information out of that repository and then displays it in lots of interesting ways. You can see a bunch of charts here, just to highlight a couple. Here I'm looking at the activities per user on the right-hand side, and right now I'm looking at splitting things up by lines of code. I can also look at files or commits, and I can see that these various issues were related to certain numbers of lines of code. And I can see just sort of visually that FE476 drove the most code changes, while this one right here, FE471, drove some of the least code changes. And so I can keep my eye on how my issues are driving changes in my code base. Over here on the far left-hand side, I've got a graph over time. In this case, I'm looking at 7 days, and I can see, how many, in this case, again, I'm looking at lines of code, what sort of the activity was, how many lines of code are changing within my repository. See, I had a big spike here 4 days ago of lines of code rather going in and out of the repository. So let me again pause here and throw things back to John Carlo. He's going to show you using Fisheye and JIRA together, and also using JIRA together with Crucible, our peer code review tool. John Carlo?
Thanks, Jeff. Let's take a look at the JIRA, Fisheye, and Crucible combo. Right now we are looking at the View Issue screen for SER-110. Using the Fisheye plugin for JIRA, you can now link your source code and reviews to your issues. Here you see all the change sets that are associated with issue SER-110. Simply click on a change set to go directly into Fisheye and learn more about this particular change set. Here you see a particular change set with change set details. You can see the JIRA issue key that it's associated with, detailed comments, and relevant files for the commit. If you click on Expand All, you can see exact changes that are highlighted. Not only can you see the commits associated with this issue, but also the reviews that are associated with these commits. And here are several of the reviews that are going on for this particular issue. And you can quickly create a review with the Crucible Review tab that you see to your right. By one click, we can simply create a review, and now we are in the Crucible interface. Now we'll go back into the JIRA interface. Now you can see that you can track your issues, monitor your source, and streamline your peer review process. Now back to you, Jeff.
All right, Giancarlo, thank you very much. And let's move on to talk about one more. Well, it's not really a plugin because there's actually nothing that goes inside of JIRA, but it is something that goes with JIRA. This is what we call the IDE Connector. The IDE Connector is actually a plugin into your IDE. Today it supports IntelliJ and will soon support Eclipse as well. And what it allows you to do is it allows the developer from within his or her IDE to see information coming out of the Atlassian toolset. So here, for example, I'm looking at JIRA, and I can see all of my JIRA information. I can see the various issues here, see the basic information like the key and the summary and the status and whatnot. With a right click, as I've done here in the screenshot, I can view the details of the issue, I can add a comment, I can log some work against it, etc. So I can interact with the issues, with the JIRA issues, from here inside of my IDE, again, in this case, IntelliJ. We can also look at, as you can see on the top, I can look at Crucible information or Bamboo information. This IDE connector is both free and open source, so it's available for you if you're an IntelliJ user, or as I said, we'll soon support Eclipse as well. You can download and install this plugin into your IDE, configure it to point at your Atlassian servers, and begin to interact with your Atlassian servers right from within your IDE, instead of having to jump back and forth between your web browser and your IDE. Next up, no screenshots this time because we're talking about licensing. There's really no UI changes here. We are now offering free JIRA that costs you nothing, absolutely $0. This is for a copy of a personal license of JIRA, as we call it. We've offered this for Confluence, our enterprise wiki, for some time. We're now pleased with JIRA 3.13 to be offering it for JIRA as well. A personal license gives you the right to create a JIRA instance with 3 registered users, and you can allow as much anonymous access as you like. And you can then use that instance for any personal, non-commercial use you'd like. We know of examples, we know people, for example, who are using personal JIRA to track tasks against some personal websites. I know of one gentleman who maintains a website for his Boy Scout troop, and so now he's setting up JIRA so that he can track any changes he needs to make to that website, or so people can make requests for change to that website. I know another woman who is using JIRA to help her. She's in the process of buying a house and moving. If you've ever done that, you know that there's a lot of steps to that process. So she's using the JIRA workflow to help her with that. With personal licenses for JIRA, as with Confluence, we don't offer you any access to our tech support. That helps us keep our costs low. But of course, there is a pretty big community of JIRA users out there in the world. You can certainly access the forums and find lots of good information about JIRA online and in our documentation. And we do limit you to 1 copy per person. Those are the highlights, but that's by no means everything we've changed in JIRA 3.13. I believe the final count was 218 issues closed, and of that, at least 200, actually over 200, were just simple bugs. So we've squashed quite a few bugs in 3.13 as well. One last thing to mention is we've also spent some time working on the performance of the JIRA client. We took a look at the JavaScript and style sheets, made some optimizations in the way we load those and the way we use them, and actually created a fairly noticeably zippier, noticeably quicker JIRA user interface. So when you're actually browsing through JIRA, you'll see that some operations, page transitions and whatnot, are actually quite a bit quicker and a lot more pleasurable for the user. There's lots more information out there. I'm just sort of scratching the surface. Let me just draw your attention here to a few things. You'll find most of this information, or most of the detailed information about 3.13 on our public wiki, confluence.atlassian.com. You can find there the JIRA 3.13 release notes, the upgrade guide, the admin guide, the user's guide, on and on. You can also download 3.13 immediately. We released JIRA 3.13 on September 8th, so it is available for immediate download. And we've mentioned a couple other tools here, Fisheye, Crucible, and Bamboo. If we've whetted your appetite and you'd like a bit more information about those tools, you can go to atlassian.webex.com. You'll find a full schedule of webinars, demonstrations of these various tools, and sort of introductions to them and get you a lot more details about how Fisheye works or how Bamboo works. Let me pause here and ask for your feedback. This is something new that we're doing here with JIRA 3.13, this webinar, this What's New webinar. We've not done this in the past with JIRA. And I'd love to know what you think of our approach here, and also what you think of JIRA 3.13. That's my personal email you see right up there, jleeser@atlassian.com. That goes right to my inbox. And I'm just inviting you to enter into a conversation with me. Let me know what you like, what you don't like about this webinar, about JIRA 3.13. A big part of my job is to talk to customers, certainly the favorite part of my job. So I'm absolutely sort of my virtual door is open to you, and so I invite you to send me your feedback. Quick plug for our next JIRA webinar coming up the week of October 20th. We'll be doing JIRA for Agile. I'll be doing some of the presentations talking about how you can use JIRA best if you're doing Agile software development. I'll have with me on the webinar some guys from Pixis, the folks who make the Greenhopper plugin. Greenhopper is a commercial plugin. You can see the screenshot of it right here. It puts into JIRA some sort of views and organizational tools that map to some Agile processes. So you can see, for example, here a planning board that looks awful lot like 3x5 index cards that are kind of a key part of Agile planning, for requirements planning. It gives you burn down charts and other metrics and charts that make a lot of sense to project managers who are doing Agile development. We'll also have with us on that webinar a customer who's been using JIRA and Greenhopper together for quite some time, and he'll relate to us how it's been going. What has his successes been? What have his challenges been in using JIRA and Greenhopper together? Again, that's the week of October 20th. Keep an eye on the Atlassian newsletter as well as our blog for the full logistical details of that and when we'll be doing that webinar. We have users groups. Another quick plug for you all. If you're not familiar with this, we're doing, as you can see, a bunch of user groups around the world, US, Australia, and Europe. These are not a chance for Atlassian to come in and sell you stuff. These are very much user-to-user communication. We facilitate them. We arrange some of the logistics, but the speakers are customers who do presentations of interesting ways they're using Atlassian tools. These are not just JIRA user groups, by the way. These are Atlassian user groups, so you'll hear about Confluence, you'll hear about perhaps Fisheye and Bamboo and so forth, but certainly JIRA as well. And we also always feature birds of a feather sessions at pretty much every user group where you really get to laser in and speak to someone who uses JIRA the same way you do. If you're a QA manager using JIRA, you'll get a chance to sit down at a table, for example, with other QA managers who use JIRA and talk about, again, your successes and the challenges. And it's also a fantastic networking opportunity for you to meet other Atlassian users and administrators within your geographic area. They're free. You just need to get yourself to them wherever they are, and we'd absolutely love to have you attend our user groups. Let me also give a brief plug, last plug, I promise, a brief plug for Atlas Camp. I don't have a slide on this one, but you can go ahead and Google Atlas Camp. It's unique. This is a 3-day event, November 6th, 7th, and 8th, for plugin developers. If you develop plugins either for your own internal use or commercially, this is a chance for you to sit down with JIRA developers. We'll have quite a few developers over from Sydney, as well as some of our San Francisco developers who do our plugin work. They'll do some presentations to you to talk about, best ways to do things in plugins and best practices and best approaches, and go into some of the details around our plugin infrastructure. You'll, again, have just a chance to network with these guys and with other plugin developers, and we'll have at least one hackathon where you can actually sit down and do some plugin development and get some peer code review from our developers or from other plugin developers. Again, it's November 6th, 7th, and 8th here in Northern California. It is $100 for the 3 days. And again, go ahead and Google Atlas Camp, and you'll get the full details and all the logistics on that event. So let me close our webinar by spending the next few minutes to talk a little bit about what's coming next. So we've just recently released 3.13, as I said, on September 8th. Where are we going from here? Well, we are planning our next major release of JIRA. JIRA 4.0 is what we're calling it right now, sometime towards sort of the spring or summertime of 2009. So March, April, May, June, somewhere in there, we'll have our next major release of JIRA. And we've got, right now, 3 major things planned for that release. So let's talk about them each in turn. First up is an answer to, right now, the most popular request in our public issue tracker, jira.atlassian.com. If you go there right now, you'll see that request for improved filters. is right at the top of the list of most popular issues. Our answer to that, our response to that, will be the creation of the JIRAQL, a JIRA query language, a structured language for queries, very much modeled on SQL. It will allow advanced users in JIRA to use this structured language to do, to name fields and operators greater than, less than, is in, so forth, and use advanced Boolean logic, anding and oring, and parentheses, and just basically really the ability to write any kind of query you can imagine to tease out specific information that you're interested in from the JIRA repository. And then, of course, thanks to now with 3.13, shareable dashboards and shareable filters, an expert can write these advanced queries and make them available to an entire team, upper management, a different team, whatever is necessary. This will give end users much more powerful, useful, and flexible filtering without question, and again, respond to a long-standing request that people have had with JIRA. We are also taking a very careful look and a very complete look at the JIRA user interface. Over the past year, we've ramped up an Atlassian design team. They're not JIRA specific, they're across all of our products. But one of the things that team is doing right now is really looking at all of JIRA, every page, every link, every button, with an eye towards what works, what doesn't, what needs improvement, looking at navigation and layout for things that are annoying, really across the board. They're still doing that investigation phase. Once that's complete, we'll then start to work our way, and they'll make some proposals, of course. We'll start to work our way down those proposals and sort of refresh and greatly improve the JIRA UI. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. We're still very much in the planning phase of that, again, for a release that's not coming out for about at least 6 months or so. But I think we'll wind up doing some pretty exciting things, and we'll certainly keep you informed as we start to make some of these decisions about where we're headed and what we're doing. And then the last thing to talk about, by no means the least thing, is also sort of at the same time we right now have an investigation going on into what we call the engine room. In this case, we've taken some pretty senior long-term JIRA developers and told them to kind of look at holistically the whole JIRA backend, the whole JIRA server, and see what can be improved upon in terms of performance and stability. They are at the moment pretty focused on caches and how we use caches and how we can improve our use of caches. And Lucene, which is our indexing tool. Lucene is an open source tool that does all our indexing of all the issues. We use a slightly old version of Lucene, so we're looking at should we upgrade, and of course since Lucene is open source, should we make any changes or tweaks to Lucene to make it that much better for JIRA. The idea here is basically to improve the response time, improve the reliability of JIRA, and therefore improve the end user experience. So with that, let me just close by saying thank you all very much. I appreciate you taking the time to join Giancarlo and I to learn all about our new release, JIRA 3.13. If you have any questions, again, we are here available to you. You can send to jleeser@atlassian.com, or you can send to sales, S-A-L-E-S, @atlassian.com, and we'll be more than happy to do what we can to answer questions. Thank you, and goodbye.